Kelly said something at the end that made me reminded me of something I've always believed in and often have said, that the predator does not bear malevolent intent against John Neumeister. You know, a lot of ranchers take this very seriously, and you know, our job is to protect and nurture our domestic livestock. But you know, Mr. Cougar and Mr. Coyote aren't out to get John Neumeister or to mess him up. And it's our job to figure out how to coexist with the wildlife. So, you know, when I grew up on a ranch, and after college and some good times in San Francisco, I moved up here to Oregon and got back to ranching, and that was in the forefront of my mind when we moved to the Coast Range. Anyway, our farm was named Cattail Creek Lamb, and from the outset in 1983 when we bought it, we started marketing directly to restaurants and grocery stores. It's grown over the years. I've now retired from direct production of livestock myself, although we occasionally have some stocker cattle or rams on the farm. But we now, I'm working with 3 different ranches in Western Oregon. Jason Bradford is a principal in Green Spring Farms. He's right here in Corvallis. This is a picture of some of the sheep out in Wanton Drive off of 53rd. And they also have property up in Polk County. These 2 fine young gentlemen I've been working with for a couple years now. Cody Wood on the right is also from Junction City, where I live, and Mitch is down the coast in Bandon on a beautiful place overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Between the 3 of us, there's somewhere north of about 1,000 ewes in the 3 operations, and we marketed about 1,500 lambs this year. That's my place. Oh, I intentionally picked a dark slide because I'm thinking about the predators coming out at night. But you can see I got a little bottomland pasture and a lot of forestry, meaning predator cover, all around the farms and in the pastures. I remember moving there, and one of the first nights I went out on the porch and I could hear not 1, not 2, but 3 different families of coyotes in 3 different directions, you know, hollering. So I knew I was going to have some challenges. I had coincidentally, I had read an article about the predator guard dog research at Hampshire College back east, and I was intrigued about that. I was surprised in the article to read that Oregon State University Animal Science Department was one of the first cooperators in that program, and they were, as I found out later, they were giving away livestock guard dog puppies that year. So we got one, and this is my dog Manute. Yeah, there were some challenges about training him to the task, but basically it wasn't difficult. We put him in the barn with the sheep after lambing. We were still bringing him in at night at the time, and so the concept is that he bonds with the young lambs, and they become his buddies. They're his family, and this is not like a ferocious animal. Basically their protection comes from it's a fear response, but they weigh. He's an Anatolian Shepherd and he weighs 90 pounds, and that's fearsome to a coyote. Our coyotes here in Western Oregon, at least, they're a small animal, and this is intimidating. He may be operating out of fear, but it looks fearsome to the coyotes, and they're going to stay away. Manute lived for 10 or 11 years, and in that 10 or 11 years, we had no losses from predators at all. And like I say, I know there were coyotes out there because I could hear them many nights, but they kept away from us. I did have a neighbor next door with unprotected livestock, and he was losing probably 30 to 40 a year. after he died, I thought I would try something that didn't eat dog food. And so then we got Carter. And he was super easy to, there wasn't any training involved. Yeah, I went and I picked him up, some folks were giving away, I put him in with the sheep, and he was doing his job from day one. But I didn't know how he worked. I knew the dog barked a lot, and I had forgiving neighbors, so I knew how that worked. But the llama was relatively silent. I wasn't sure how he worked. And then one day, I was down the pasture. My neighbor's dog Rambo got out, and he walked along the fence on the other side of the paddock from where the sheep and the llama was, and he's ambling along. And the llama picked up on it. The llama goes over to the fence, leans over like this to Rambo and just gave him the evil eye. And you can see the dog doing the mental calculation, and he takes off for home. So, but what really surprised me is Carter took off. That dog was running full speed, and the llama was matching him stride for stride all the way off the property. Wow. So, I'm not sure what he would do if he had gotten in there with him, but the intimidation factor of a 350-pound animal, I worked on that dog, and presumably the coyotes too. Carter was with us for over 15 years, and when I finally decided to sell my remaining breeding ewes to Jason, I sold him off to some other people, so I'm not sure how long he lived in his career. But again, and so in a period of 29 years with these two guard animals, during which we raised probably over 2,000 market lambs, I am quite sure that we had no losses ever from coyote. But I can't say that about cougar, because in the last 10 years, we started getting predation from cougars, and it was, didn't know what was happening at first. I thought, first it was a couple bottle lambs that we had fed, bummer lambs that we had fed when they were young, and they, somebody would come to stop by the farm and open up their door to look at it, and they'd go run right over the fence and look at them. So I thought they were being snatched. And then we lost some others, and then I started looking around. You see vultures on the far ridge, and I'd go up and check it out, and there would be my ewe. So the predation by the cougars got pretty severe. We were up around 6 or 8%, and it would just happen. They would come from any direction. I had a lamb taken. I found cougar hair on the mailbox right on the county road beside my smallholder neighbors. I had a ram, 250-pound ram that got drug off about 300 yards after he was taken. So anyway, I don't think the llamas are effective against cougar. I also had a neighbor during that period that a cougar actually killed his llama, a 400-pound llama. Whether the dog had been effective about cougar for those first 12 years, I can't say for sure. None of the neighbors were talking about cougars in the neighborhood. For many years I believed that they just weren't around and that they came later, but maybe he did. But I'm only going to tell you today what I know and not what I speculate. The other thing I wanted to talk about today too is Whole Foods Market and the Global Animal Partnership thing. I am ecstatic to tell you that we got into the Whole Foods Market Northwest region this year, and I'm still in the giddy teenage love phase of my relationship with this corporation, but so far so good. They've been very, very good to me and great people to work with. This is their big downtown Seattle meat department, this nice sign on the wall proclaiming our raising claim. We're also hormone and antibiotic free. And thanks to Global Animal Partnership, we also are certified for high standards of animal welfare and for being predator friendly. So Whole Foods Market requires Global Animal Partnership certification. You don't sell to them unless you have it. And I think this, for those of us in agriculture, this is a recognition of where things are going in the future. Consumers, people that are going to buy the products that we grow, have ideas about how they want their animals raised. We can engage them in conversation when we can find them one-on-one. But if you're selling at a retail store, it's, unless you do a lot of demos, you're not going to meet your customers and have a chance to explain your program to them one-on-one. So we're relying on certification to so that the people that shop in those stores know that we're walking the talk. When we first hooked up with them, it was a little unclear from the standards I was reading online what the thing was with them on predators. So I called up, and she said just flat out on every level of Global Animal Partnership certification, all trapping and snares are banned. So anyway, I talked to my production partners. They were all the farms, no, correct myself. 2 out of the 3 farms were already using guard animals, but they were also relying on trapping at some point. I talked to Cody, and he had been with me at that meeting with Whole Foods where we were talking about a $100,000 contract, and the buyer is nodding his head. And I'm really glad Cody was there that day, because when I said, we're going to have to ban the trapping entirely, he was right there with me. My favorite story, though, was Mitch down on the coast. I don't think he would mind if I told the story, but Cody broke the news to him, and that he was going to have to give up trapping, and he said, okay. He said, I'll do it. I'll call the guy in the morning. And a couple of weeks later, Cody checked with him, and he said, did you have a chance to talk to your trapper? And he says, yeah. He said, I did, Cody, but this is really hard. I mean, I've known the guy since elementary school, and we're buddies and all. He says, this was like getting a divorce. So, I love that story because it showed in an isolated and rural community, the strong feelings that all of us work in agriculture or in conservation, understand that these are emotional issues for a lot of people. But in this case, we have a nationwide grocery chain that's willing to assure its consumers, for presumably it heard feedback, that their animals are raised in a certain way, friendly to predators, and talk to us growers and say, we really need to do this for our base, and for us to be able to respond and meet that requirement. And just so you wonder, I don't mind saying that the commercial price of market lambs right now is about $1.30 a pound a live weight, and the growers in my program are currently making $1.80 a pound live weight. So they continue to have some predator losses. They're generally at this point, depending on the operation. Actually, Cody hasn't had any losses in 2 years, and he's got 2 dogs. One of the farms is about 3 to 5, which is high, but it's a challenge because they're around a lot of paddocks. Mitch is actually under 2%. So there is some loss, but they have a premium in the market to encourage them to make the extra effort to be predator friendly and to cover those losses. Anyway, happy to pass on a name if any of you are in livestock and you want to market direct. This is the lady to talk to. Jot down her phone number and email address. Her job is to get good growers into Whole Foods Market, and so she's happy to talk to you. And that's it. I'll take a couple of questions if you want. Yeah.
How many would you say, on a typical guard dog, would you feel, based on your experience, how many sheep can they protect?
Well, so I never had more than like 60 ewes and maybe 100 market lambs on the farm at one time. So, and I thought one dog was fine. And total acreage was maybe 45 acres, but as you saw, it's all broken up, and I had hillside and bottomland pasture and a lot of odd pieces, mostly surrounded by trees. But I found with the dog, he quickly learned the whole farm. As a matter of fact, the one paddock I called the East Hill, the first time I put him out there with the sheep, he wouldn't let them graze. He bunched them out by the gate, down as close as he could get to the barn for 2 days. I had to put him on another paddock and then put him back. It was about the third day when he finally got out, walked all around the fence line, walked through the woods that were in that paddock, and became comfortable with that paddock before he would even let them graze. So, they're smart. They were, and protection was the first thing on their mind. So I'm not really sure because I wasn't big enough, but.
Do you know how many are on the other properties? How many their dogs are on?
Okay, so Cody has 2 dogs and 500 ewes, and then Vitality has got 4 dogs now and also about 500 ewes. So, they're fairly confident that they're getting effective use for, up to about 200 or 300, I would say on average. Yeah. Camilla?
How large are those properties? Excuse me.
Sorry?
How large are those properties?
Each is a different type of management structure. Mitch's place in Bandon, I think, is maybe about 300 acres of open pasture, all in one place. Cody rents several different properties. He's probably, I'm going to guess 600 or 700 acres. And then Jason, through Green Spring Farm, actually, they have their pick of thousands of acres, but then they also run dairy herd, organic dairy herd replacement calves and stocker cattle, and there's a lot of cropping. Yeah.
So the dog food, what did it cost you a year to feed that?
Oh, I shudder to think. Well, I've long since forgotten, but it's a 90-pound animal, and it was significant. And if you don't put it in a can to keep it protected, the ground squirrels will eat it.
John, you mentioned Anatolian Shepherd. Other breeds that your guys use, or is that primarily?
The Great Pyrenees, the Maremma from Italy, Akbash, and the Anatolian Shepherd. I think those are all the ones. I've done some reading lately. There's new varieties I haven't even heard of, but the key is, back to those Hampshire University studies, is that they're the big, goofy, short-faced, really juvenile, characteristic appearing dogs. I mean, your shepherds or your working dogs, your herd dogs, are basically predator-like animals that work by intimidation. Guard animals are like a whole nother kind of dog that's really, as a variety, as a kind, is like in an arrested stage of juvenile development. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering about barking. I've heard that a couple times, but through the years I've heard that there are dogs that don't bark or they don't bark that much.
I wouldn't know. Our dog barked a lot, and so I went to the neighbors one by one. We're in a rural area. There are some smallholders nearby, and I just said, look, we're trying to do the right thing here, and protect these animals instead of being out, shooting and trapping predators. And I'd like your support to understand that he's just doing his job, and they were supportive, so that was good.
Question along those lines, did you ever have any issues with wandering dogs? Like sometimes that's been an issue with ranchers that we work with, where particularly the Pyrenees, so they're kind of get on a roaming streak, and then it's...
Oh my God, yes. So one year, so as I briefly alluded to, and I was thinking that when you asked your question to Kelly earlier, it was really helpful to have somebody with unprotected animals right next door. So now, But they also eat, rodents and presumably as predators, they do their job by weeding out, the weak and the old from the other gene pools. But yeah, because my next door neighbor didn't have protection, he lost a lot of animals to coyotes. Well, I was working a day job at the time, and one day I pull out the lane and I'm driving by his place and I look over and oh my gosh. So a little story I told about my dog bunching up the sheep and not letting them graze the East Hill. He had bunched all 300 head up. and basically they were just like set stocking on 300 acres, 300 sheep on 300 acres. And he had apparently that morning already had gone over the entire property, gathered up all those sheep and was walking back and forth as fast as he could to keep them in the corner. I just called up Bill and said, Bill, don't kill my dog. I'm going to get him out of there as soon as I can. So, yeah, I think, the answer, Camilla, is as a good neighbor, making sure that your fences are dog-proof to not only, help with the coyote and the neighbor's dog getting into your sheep, but also keeping your dog behind your fence. So,
Do you neuter yours? Because I think a lot of that wandering problem can, ranchers historically don't like to neuter their dogs or their working dogs and stuff, which I don't agree with, because I think neutering your guardian animals makes them, work just as well, and you have less problems with things like wandering but were yours fixed?
gosh, that's been a while. I can't remember. My assumption is he was neutered when he was brought to me, because OSU gave me the dog when he was probably a month old. Yeah.
They for sure neutered it. OSU doesn't give out animals that are not fixed.
There you go. Excellent. Anything else? Yeah.